Right, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for your patience in waiting for us to sort out the technology. Hopefully, well, you can hear me in the room, and hopefully you can hear me on Zoom at home and in the ether somewhere. It's taken a little while just to get our head around this new box of tricks here, but we are here, we're ready to go. So, welcome to Grand Rounds. My name's Tom Farden. I'm the chair and organizer of Grand Rounds. I'm usually the person in my office on that little screen introducing all this stuff, and what a delight it is to be here in person in the Gannochy Lecture Theatre. And it's Niles Hospital turned 50 just last week, I think, and there was lots of social media pictures of what this used to look like when I first got here, which was 2003, the original lecture theatre, and there are some similarities to it, but what a big difference it is in terms of space and the technology that we now have as well. So thank you very much to those of you in the room for making the effort to come. It's much appreciated, and our speakers today will certainly appreciate having real life physical people to speak to. People in the audience at home or in your offices, please do use the chat to ask questions. And this year, we think we've got the technology right so that you'll be able to hear everything wherever you are, whatever you're doing. So it is October. We're squeaking in at the end of October, but October is Black History Month. And every year for the last 5 years, at least, we have been blessed by having talks about Black history. And the last couple of years, it's been led, delivered, organized by our students. And that's no different this year. So I'm going to hand over, and you're going to take over, and they're going to lead all to themselves. Please, if you do have questions, save them up to the end. And thanks very much indeed for organising this and being here. And a spontaneous round of applause for our students, everyone.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you for having us all. Yeah, it's really an honor for students to be able to talk about just our Black experiences. So it can be just running through some things, we've got different perspectives, international students, people from Dundee, different year groups as well, but hopefully you all enjoy. So I'll be here talking about my transition from secondary school to university. So just to introduce myself, my name is Chris Papuala. I'm a second year medical student. And this is a picture of me and my younger brother. But yeah, so I was born in Nigeria, in Ibadan, which is just like the southwest, near the coast there, just where the circle is. And I moved to the UK when I was around 1.5 years old. I lived in London for a bit, and then I lived in Barnsley, which is in Yorkshire area.
Bring up the Barnsley!
And then I grew up on the Wirral, which is a peninsula near Liverpool, which I really love. So I was there from the age of like 4 to now, I guess. And yeah, so I was really excited about moving to Dundee and going to university, that big transition. Getting to medical school is really exciting. And I think as well, there's some trepidation, going away from home, but I think the idea of independence as well was quite exciting, trying to sort things out for myself, living with friends, things like that. So that was something to kind of get used to, but I was definitely looking forward to it. But yeah, so I come from the Wirral, as I said. It's a really nice place, but it's 94.2% white, which is a pretty large white population. So I was intrigued to see what university would be like, how much more diverse it would be. I think as well, coming from England to Scotland, they're both in the UK, but it's called just a different culture, the things like Kaylee's, haggis. I was excited to try all those things and see what it would be like. But yeah, no, I mean, race hasn't had many major implications in my life. It's been really good growing up on the Wirral. I go to a very multicultural church back home. It's been really good. You've got people from the Philippines, from China, from Korea, from Canada, from Zimbabwe. It's just a really great mix of people. And then I also belong to a Nigerian Christian organization back home as well. So that helped really connect me with my Nigerian roots, I'd say, growing up, which has been really, really nice. But yeah, so of course, moving to Dundee, I think was a big change. And I think for anyone, no matter your race, your age, where you are, where you live, going to university is a massive step. I think even if you're from Dundee and then going to the University of Dundee, it's a whole different mindset change in terms of living on your own, or even if you're living at home, having to cope with academics, a different style of learning. So I was just kind of comforted by the fact that everyone is kind of being thrown in as a newbie together, and we're all trying to just figure out this new stage of life together. So that was really nice. But yeah, the transition was really good. I really enjoyed it. Just moving to Dundee and getting everything. It's quite far from back home, around 5.5 hours, and the car ride is not fun. But we do it anyway. I will say one thing about Dundee is it's quite small. I've never lived in like a city before, but I think what was really interesting is you form these different communities, but then you'll see people regularly or every single day, like going around, on the bus, in the shops, which can be like for better or for worse, sometimes you don't see anyone. But I think it is really an interesting thing to get used to, just how everyone kind of mixes together. I'd say one thing that I find really big about Dundee, at least in the student population, is how diverse it is. I think it was just crazy. We had a map at the start of the year where we put where we were from on Padlet, and it's interesting seeing people from Canada, from Africa, from just like lots of different continents all around the world. I was like, wow, I didn't know, like I know medicine brings a lot of people from different backgrounds, but I didn't know how international spanning it was going to be. So that was really exciting. Even just as well being in like, the student areas of Dundee, like the library, hearing my own language, Yoruba, being spoken in the library, just like that catching me off guard and being really surprised by that. But I think it's just been really great meeting lots of people from lots of different backgrounds. I've really enjoyed it. Even my flatmates, when I moved in, we were all medics, which was a surprise, but we were all from different countries. I've moved from England, there's a guy from Scotland, a guy from Northern Ireland, a guy from Egypt/Dubai, and a guy from the US as well. So it was just like, we're all connected by medicine and, our strive to learn and things like that, but also hearing about their cultures, their foods, their backgrounds was really just an interesting place to be. I think also it's been interesting prepping for this as well, hearing how the experience can change when you're on placements. Like Dundee, yes, it's diverse and student-wise, but it's not a very diverse city overall. So how that can change and so what that means. But yeah, I think one of the other big things getting used to in university is actually living, by yourself. You've got to cook, you've got to clean, you've got to tidy your room, all those things. And I think of course, I grew up doing helping out with cooking, helping out with laundry each week, things like that. But when you're living on your own, there's no extra support. If I can't do it this week, then I know my parents will help me and things like that. You have to fully take control and you have to kind of step up and take that role fully. So that was something to get used to. One question that often runs through my mind is, do I have anything to eat tonight? When am I going to go to the shops? What time do I need to leave the library before the shops close? Things like that. What am I going to cook? You have to think in a different way. But I think it's kind of stepping up to that plate of more responsibility, which is exciting, I think, as well. There's a lot of independence that comes with that. And I guess the main thing to remember, the biggest thing is that we're all in university to study. That's the main reason why we're here. And I think that was definitely a different adjustment as well. One thing I like about medicine compared to friends on other courses is that it's very structured. And it's not exactly a 9 to 5, but we're basically a 9 to 4 each day. I've got classes and then workshops. So I have that similar structure that you have in secondary school. It's organized by a timetable. But within that structure, there's also a lot of kind of room for freedom as well. I think there's, we don't have a syllabus anymore as per se. It's structured as an exam board thing that's set. So you have to kind of do a lot more self-directed learning as well, which requires a lot more independence. And I think getting used to that has been quite interesting. Speaking to first years as well, trying to give them advice, it's been they're going through foundations of medicine, which if it's just a lot of science in one, and you don't need to know it all, but you need to kind of have a general overview. And they're like, do I need to know this? And what part can I leave? And I think it's one of those things that you just develop over time. I think as with all of these skills, the living by yourself, studying, just being in a different city, meeting new people, it's all these things kind of just develop over time. And it's going to be, I guess, exciting to see how that changes. I'm only in second year, I've still got 3 more years to go, hopefully. So just seeing how that changes. But yeah, overall, I think it's been a really positive experience, that transition. I love being in university. I often joke with my friends that if medicine was a 10-year course and all the content was just stretched out across that, I honestly wouldn't mind. I'm enjoying it for now. I mean, we'll say what I say later on. I'm only in second year, but for now, I'm really loving it. And yeah, I think I think my biggest takeaway was just that how it doesn't all fall into place straight away, but as time goes on, you get more used to things, get used to used to schedules, things like that, and just organizing your life better. Yeah, thank you everyone. Does anyone have any questions from anyone?
Do you want to take questions?
Oh, all at the end. Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Just for microphone purposes. Okay, all good? See the blue square. Speaking.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Perfect. So as we were saying today, we're celebrating Black Story. So today I'll be talking about my experience as a Scottish Black student and then my journey of clinical placement. So first of all, I'll just say a little bit about myself. So my name is Gannochy. I'm a fifth year medical student and I'm basically at the end of my road at this point. So yeah, I'm studying here at the University of Dundee. And I just want to thank you all for giving me the experience to share a bit about myself. So just a little bit of a history. So I was born here in Dundee. Funny story, I was actually born in Ninewell, so history has a way of repeating itself. I'm a Dundonian at heart and I'm the oldest of two siblings. So these are my two brothers up here, and I was born to Nigerian parents. I also went to primary school and secondary school here. And growing up, majority of the time, I was typically the only Black kid in that year group and also the entire school until my brother joined me, of course. So then just to kind of show some key points in my life. So this is me on my first day of primary school, getting excited to start my learning journey, which has been pretty long so far, but we're getting there. And then this is another photo of me in primary 4 and then me in high school. So just to kind of show I've come a long way. So far, life has not had too many challenges and it's been pretty good so far. So then just to talk about a few things I love about Scotland, because again, I'm a Scottish babe. So of course, we love a good Burns night. So I love a little bit of the poetry. We love a little bit of Burns night because, you know, something that we very much celebrated throughout high school. We had Kayleys as well. And in primary school, I was part of the Scottish country dancing team. Don't ask me to dance anymore. I probably don't remember. As well as one thing that Scotland is very much known for is the lovely views and landscapes that we have. Something that I feel like as Scottish people we take pride in going on hikes, our beautiful nature and things like that, as well as music. I don't play the bagpipes, but if you do hear them, they're very loud and they're very prominent. And of course, haggis. I, for one, am actually a fan of haggis, but some people are not. But yes, Scotland is known for a wide variety of things that I've come to love over time. So then just a little bit about myself. So essentially I started my university journey back in 2016, where I actually got into biomedical science in the University of Aberdeen. From there, it was the first time I ever got to see diversity actually explode in real life. You know, from someone that was like the only like Black kid in, let's say, their school, to basically meeting people from all different sorts of walks of life, people that were postgrads, undergrads, people that are married, various different demographics, and you just got to meet so many different types of interesting people. And I had an amazing opportunity to meet so many friends, colleagues over the time, and it allowed me to kind of, you know, start this process of appreciating my other cultural heritage, which is, of course, Nigeria. It was the first time I found myself surrounded by people that looked like me, who shared similar childhood experiences as me. And one society that really stood out for me is the African Caribbean Society, where it allowed me to kind of see a little bit more about African culture, the Caribbean culture, kind of share and talk about the rich, you know, heritage and cultures that they had there, from the foods to the dance to everything in between. So it was really a really good opportunity for me to kind of discover that other part of myself. I always like to say, as a young teen, you know, as you're going out into the world, you're trying to navigate and start this journey into adulthood, figuring out who you are in this world and what your identity is. And essentially, that's kind of where my journey into, you know, figuring out identity started for me. So then fast forward, I graduated in 2020, meaning that we didn't have a physical graduation. So that was unfortunately ruined by COVID. But, you know, I did eventually get one in 2022, thank God. So yeah, so then because I graduated and I still had that passion to do medicine, I then started medicine in 2020. So that was, again, a very interesting experience. That was basically e-medicine, learning everything online, meeting your classmates for the first time in clinical skills, a very interesting experience, but we made it through. So medical school was not too much different than my experience in biomed in regards to diversity, only because I feel like medical school, the way that it's shaped, kind of forces people to kind of come together. And medical school is one of those places where I feel like diversity is really thriving and very vast. You know, me myself, I've already done a degree before, so I'm a postgrad in this degree. But you meet so many different types of people, people that again are postgraduate, undergraduate, married, single, have kids, people that have backgrounds in opera and so on and so forth. And it's just amazing to kind of see the diversity that is there. And when I say that medicine brings you together, it's because of the way that it's kind of run. So I like the fact that medical school, when you first start, you kind of have this thing called a small group, where essentially within that small group, you get to know these people over the next 3 years. You're almost like forced to come together, have discussions, learn together. And also the fact that medicine is also quite a small class initially, compared to most classrooms where in my previous degree, it'd be like 200, 300. Sometimes the medicine is only up to 150. So you get pretty cozy quite quickly, to be honest. And because of that, you know, like I was saying, you work together, you study together, you go through tough times. And I'm sure all of us who are studying medicine can agree, it's one of those degrees you don't want to do by yourself. It's not fun. So now I'm currently in my clinical year, and I've currently finished, thank God, my finals. And I'm currently really, really enjoying it. But as I explained, placement year is not without its challenges. It's one of those phases in medical school where you really have to put yourself out there. You have to, it's very much self-directed and you get as much as you put in. So essentially it's about, you know, keeping going, working through the challenges and essentially just getting stuck in when you get into placement year. So and then one thing I would say that I've kind of noticed throughout being on placement so far is despite the fact that the MDT, let's say for example, the workforce is quite diverse, the demographic is still fairly a white population, but it's just interesting to see how it contrasts from the patients mainly being white, but then the demographic of the MDT being like quite diverse. So you'll have people from India, for example, from different parts of Africa to Asia, various parts across the whole globe. So it's quite interesting to kind of see that contrast from one another. And then just to kind of highlight ups and downs I've been through in medical school. So this is just some pictures of myself just kind of just going through it. And there's me just learning how to do the plastic casts as well. And then just to kind of talk about some common things that I've heard on placement. So things that some common questions that I've experienced are things like, you know, like where are you from originally? Or is the capital letter in your name a typo? Or you don't have the accent? Or you haven't, how long have you lived here? So these are kind of common questions that I've encountered over the years. And normally when someone asks me where you're from, I tend to answer like, oh, I'm from Dundee. And sometimes it's okay, it sits well with other people. And then at times it might be like a little bit confusing. Then I have to do my follow-up answer of, oh, but my parents are from Nigeria. And then a very common one, not just with, this one is quite common with everybody, but I've always had this question of, is letter in your name a typo? And no, it's not. Essentially, my name, it means praise God in my native language. So it's basically two letters being put together. So the first N in my name is actually capital on purpose, and you'll find it on the birth certificate. Yes. And then in terms of the accent, I do believe that I did have a bit of a Scottish accent beforehand, but I think as I moved to Aberdeen, it kind of got a little bit lost. And now, even me myself, I don't know how to categorize anymore. And in terms of how long I've lived here, all my life. So yeah. And then I think another funny story that probably just to share is I think there was one time I was on placement and there was a little old lady and she was asking me what my name was. And I said to her, my name's Sabena. And she was like, oh, what's the meaning of your name? Just out of curiosity. And I told her it means praise God. And she says that she wasn't able to remember and if she could call me praise God instead. And I was like, you know what? Just call me Toby. It's probably easier. So, yeah. And normally, like, you know, these kind of questions might frustrate or bother some people, but I've kind of just learned to, I don't know, accept that sometimes not everyone's going to understand. And sometimes it's a thing of just conversation starters, to be honest. I know that normally people tend to assume at first glance, maybe I'm international or maybe I'm not Scottish at first. And for a while, it used to be something that bothered me because I used to think, where do I actually fit in? You know, I used to have this struggle of I'm not Scottish enough because I don't really fit the demographic, but then I'm not Nigerian enough because I don't really get the lingo or I've not lived there. But over time, I've kind of come to the terms with the fact that, you know, I am who I am, and, you know, everyone's story is unique, and it's only you that can be the author of your own life because you're the only one that gets to live it. So this is a little bit of a nice analogy just to kind of finish off, and I want to call it the beach ball analogy. And basically, it's just to kind of set the tone that you can't always expect others to understand something they've never lived. You know, like I said, I've become accustomed to understanding that not everyone's going to understand your perspective, especially if they've never lived it. And the beach ball analogy kind of helps us to paint the picture that sometimes people won't understand because they're just seeing life from a different perspective. And just by having that awareness allows us to kind of understand maybe the reason why people ask certain questions and to be a bit more forgiving and have a bit more grace when it comes to these situations. But as I said, I'm both Scottish and Nigerian, and I'm very proud of my dual heritage. So thank you very much for listening.
Hi, can everyone hear me? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lawala Ajamon, and I'm going to be talking today about my international student experience. Okay, so like I said, I'm Lawala. I'm a second-year international medical student. I'm from Canada. I was actually born in Nigeria, so I'm Nigerian, but I previously lived in England for 9 years, and then I relocated to Canada at 15. So growing up in England is what really motivated me to kind of like come back and like study medicine here. Because if you know anything about the North American system, you have to do an undergraduate degree first before you go into medicine. So I said, let me just fast track the system. So that's why I came here. Okay, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about my academic adaptation. So studying medicine in Dundee was a significant adjustment for me. Just like Chris mentioned earlier, I came straight from high school. So just adjusting from high school to university was like I don't even know how I did it, but we're here. And one thing I actually did find quite difficult was the Scottish accent. Even though I lived in England, Scotland's a whole other thing, especially the Glaswegian accent. I still have trouble understanding it. So that's something that I'm still kind of adapting to. And then another thing is that Scottish medical school is completely different from Canadian medical school in terms of Scottish medical school, especially Dundee, it's quite clinical firsthand. Whereas in Canada, you would spend medical school is only 4 years, but the first 2 years are just pure like sciences. So you'll have no patient contact, none of that. So you'll just be biology, chemistry, all that kind of stuff. So I do like that kind of contrast. I'll just be talking about my cultural adjustment. So back in Canada, I grew up in Nova Scotia, and that translates to New Scotland. But funny enough, I knew nothing about Scottish culture. When I moved here, I did my first KD. I unfortunately, but fortunately, ate haggis for the first time. I'm not all over. But before coming, I was quite scared that I wouldn't meet anyone of the same background or culture of me. My culture is something that I hold very like dear to my heart, and being able to express myself and express my culture is something that I love to do because in Nova Scotia, in England, it's a primarily white place. So even in my graduating class, I was the only Black person. So coming here, I was like, no, I need to change the narrative. There has to be more people. So coming to Dundee was a nice warm surprise. Seeing like the members of the African Caribbean Society and just walking around campus and just seeing everyone just completely different races and cultures was really, really cool. And I think the big thing that really stuck out to me was that there's shops here that I can shop for my own cultural ingredients. So I can make food from back home, so I'm not too homesick. All right, so I'll just be talking about racial identity now and representation. So first of all, I identify as a Black Nigerian woman before I'm Canadian or British. Yes, nationally I am Canadian and I am British, but when I step into a room and when I occupy a space, the first thing that people will take me as is a Black woman. So that's something that I always like go front with. And actually, before moving to Scotland, my parents warned me that, hey, life isn't rainbows and unicorns and roses. You will probably face racism when you go. So that was like a hard thing to kind of like, I don't know, like affirm with, because obviously when I faced racism before, I always had like my parents to run to or whatever. But like in this sense, I'd be facing it alone. And then to add another thing to it, I'd be facing racism in my professional like outcome as well. So that was something that I had to kind of like just kind of accept and just kind of, I guess, roll with the punches. Hallelujah, not much has happened so far. But it's honestly so heartwarming to be taught by Black lecturers. As growing up, I did not have a single Black teacher growing up. So that kind of always made me wonder, like, why can't we occupy the space of education? Like, what's the issue? But it was so amazing. I think it was a microbiology lecture. The lecturer walked in and she was even Nigerian. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to listen to this lecture. Like, I'm going to pay so much attention right now. You don't even know. So just seeing myself and just seeing my culture just represented in like bigger spaces like this is what really affirms it for me as well. I'll just be talking about my personal professional growth. So living and studying abroad has been a big adaptation, but it's one that's allowed me to explore and grow. I would say, like, since I moved here, I've had to, like Chris said before, adjust to living by myself, doing my groceries, doing my laundry, all that kind of just basic life stuff. But then also in terms of like education, learning how to study different, learning how I learn, and just like adapting to a completely different community and different culture that I've never experienced before. So that's something that is continually ongoing, but has been getting better. And then another like growth is been getting to see a different type of healthcare has allowed me to appreciate the difference. So whenever I go home, I do try and like shadow as much as possible. And then obviously while we're here, my clinical skills in that, obviously I'll do like shadowing and stuff like that as well. So it's good to see like the different contrasts like between the two countries, but then how they all work together for like the people and the demographic of there. Any advice I would give for Black international students, or just students in general, honestly, is surround yourself with people who uplift you and vice versa. Like Savannah said, you really can't do this alone. You can't do this degree alone. You can't do this life alone, honestly. But surrounding yourself with people who uplift you and kind of understand what you're going through as well. It doesn't have to be that they have to necessarily be in medicine, but like just like are around you and like understand you versus like know that kind of things. Is really, really good, especially when sometimes it doesn't feel as rewarding. I'm very, very grateful to have a great support system and then my family back home as well. Another thing I'd say is to try something new. Don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone. That's something that I really went guns blazing with when I moved to Dundee. If someone would have told me, 10 years ago that I'd come to medical school in Scotland and I one day walk into Ian Lowe and just see my face, I would say, heck no, it's not happening. But since I moved here, actually my friend Forrest introduced me to the student content creator initiative at Dundee. So I really like content creation. Always kind of like dabbled in it, but then I never really went full with it. But I'm just so happy that Dundee gave me like that opportunity to really like go head first and just like experience it and have fun with it and just grow and learn. And then the last thing I'll say is appreciate how far you've come and how far you're going to go. I feel like sometimes we get so immersed in like what's in front of us now and what we have to do and what we have to overcome. But it's nice to take a step back and just truly just be grateful for how far that you've come and how far you have left to go. All right, so thank you very much.
Okay, I assume this is on. So happy to be here. My name is Aura and I'm a first year medical student, and I'm speaking about my experiences as a Black person in the community. So here I am. I was born in Glasgow, but I moved to Cornwall, which is in England, when I was about 4 or 5. Then I moved back up to Glasgow when I was about 9 or 10. In Cornwall, I went to basically an all-white primary school. There were 5 people of color there, me and my brothers, and then there were 2 Eritrean boys who were in my year and in my brother's year. And we didn't really get along per se, but we stuck together in a sense of like person of color solidarity, but also I kind of just saw on my parents' face how they lit up when we came home and told them there was another family of color in the area, because that meant that they had someone who could show them the ropes and tell them basically just how they were going to be treated in our area. I was passionate about ED&I before I knew it was a thing, because as the youngest child, I've got 2 older brothers, they already told me that racism existed, and I was like, that's fine, I'm going to make sure everyone's included. The goods. I had the best of both worlds. I was never forced to choose between being Nigerian and being British. I was never told that I couldn't be Nigerian because I don't speak Yoruba, or that I couldn't be British because I was white. And I think that is mostly because my parents were so I suppose I put in a lot of effort to make sure that I had a very well-rounded perception of who I was as a person and how my background affected me. Me and my brothers are all born in different places. My oldest brother is born in Ireland, the other one's born in Chicago, and I was born in Scotland. So my dad had the genius idea of making us all learn our national anthems and sing it for him. If there is a video out there, I will hunt it down and destroy it. Another fantastic thing is that as basically their first point of contact in primary school, anything they would ask me, I had free range to just lie about what was going on. I don't know if you can see my hair now, but it took 9 hours to do. If I went to my school and I was like, hi guys, my hair takes 9 hours, they say, oh, you must wake up so early to get your hair done every day. Yes, of course I do. I wake up at 5. You say, oh, my mom says that there are lions in Africa. Do you have to fight lions? Yes, actually, I have a pet elephant too. They'd ask me if I know Tiana, as in from Princess and the Frog, the cartoon. Of course I do, that is my cousin. And as you see me in the middle, evil genius, I was diabolical, plotting on everything. The bad. So my dad is a consultant, and he works in public health and epidemiology and basically just infectious disease. Around 2014, 2015, he traveled to Sierra Leone to help in the Ebola crisis. And I thought that was fantastic. I was like, wow, my dad's literally a superhero. Everyone at school is gonna love to hear this. Unfortunately, people were not so happy. I was kind of a massive shock to me that when I came through and I was like, yeah, my dad has gone to Sierra Leone to help fight a crisis. They're like, oh, you must have Ebola, which doesn't make sense, first of all. but what really got me was the fact that they knew me and they knew I was Nigerian, so not from Sierra Leone, and they knew about me. And I always assumed that stereotypes were due to a lack of knowledge and not knowing Black people personally. So experiencing that kind of racism when these are people who I considered my friends was upsetting. And of course it got worse, because why wouldn't it? Being a teenager was hard, but especially during 2020. Quarantine, I'm sure everyone found out, was a time where social media was basically your escape from the world around you, or especially not being able to get outside. And especially with the death of George Floyd, it was extremely difficult because my timeline was now full of just Black people and their trauma, and it felt as if I had no escape from the racism in the world around me. And I suppose that's when I properly became an activist in a sense, because I would take social media and make sure that people knew my stance on these topics. And once again, I thought that stereotypes were just because people didn't know me. But no, people who I consider my friends would then be arguing with me about my legibility as a human being, the pros and cons of slavery and things like that, which was surprising. And then even after that, we come back and you get older and people are now saying, we all had a racist phase in high school. I don't know who we is, because personally, I did not do that. And there was always the idea, or at least this conception, I suppose misconception that whistleblowing would mean that I'm ruining someone's life, which was interesting because my childhood innocence was taken away by the jokes that they would tell me. And once again, I'm not laughing, it's not funny. And then I was told this random family member is racist. And I'm already at your house, he's coming into the room, kind of weird. But then it kind of expanded from there because people would then assume that because I was an activist and because I preached about equality, that they could now come to me and be like, oh, this person is racist, what are you gonna do about it? What do you want me to do about it? And yeah, but there is always good. What I love about the fact that I tried my best. I did my part for my community because in high school, I started the Equality Club along with a bunch of teachers who helped me. And because no one spoke up for me, I wanted to speak up for others. And I kind of understood that there was a sort of weight on my shoulders that I needed to pave the way for the other Black girls coming after me. In the picture there, we have one of my friends' little sisters, and when I saw them, I knew that I had to do something in a sense, because I didn't want them to have to struggle the same way that I struggled growing up. And I just think that we all have to do our bit. And I think it all stemmed, at least my courage to do these things stemmed from having an anti-discrimination family. My dad, Dr. Femi Oshin, he sued Public Health England for discrimination and he won. And that was extremely inspirational for me. And I knew that even though there are barriers trying to hold me back, I can break through those. So in summary, life as a Black person hasn't always been great, but there is hope. And you should find your role models, and I promise you'll find your people. And if you can, and if you're willing, do your bit for your community so that people coming after you will have an easier time than you did. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Timalaine Fabi, and I'll be talking about ED&I progressions and suggestions. So first of all, just a bit about me. My full name is Oluwa Timalaine Fabi, and I know that might be really hard to pronounce, so I just go by Timalaine. The only time I get called Oluwa Timalaine is when I'm getting in trouble by my mom, so that is not a good sign. I am currently a second-year medical student, and one of my favorite foods in my culture is yam, egg, and plantain. That combo is the best. I just love it so much. I was born in Nigeria, specifically in Ibadan, just the same as Chris. And I moved to Scotland, Glasgow, when I was 4 years old. I speak Yoruba. So yeah, that's just a few bits about me. That's me and my older sister in that picture there. So first of all, what is ED&I? So I know some people might not actually know what the acronym stands for. So it just stands for Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion. The university actually has an ED&I group. I spoke to Dr. Kang, and she just gave me like a summary of what the ED&I group does, and the group and everything that they do. So one of the things that the ED&I group does is assessment and training, and I think that this is really important because it shows that they're actually putting an effort to find out what the university needs to do and incorporate to allow minority groups to feel seen and heard. Another thing is having representatives. So ED&I is not just about race, it's also about gender equality, it's also about disability awareness. So just having a representative for each category allows each minority group to feel seen, but much more better than just having one representative for the whole group. So yeah, some of the categories that the ED&I group covers. So I did some research and found out some of the ways that the university has progressed. So I think one of the best ways is through societies and groups for minorities. I remember when I came in first year, just being able to find people that look like me, sound like me, and like can give me advice on like maybe things about my hair or where I can buy cultural food. And this was through the ACS, so that's the Afro-Caribbean Society. And I think it's really important for the university to have different societies for different minority groups, so that when you're coming from whether far or near, you can find your people and connect with them. Another thing that the university does is the Race Equality Charter. So they currently have the Bronze Award and they're striving for the Silver Award, hopefully next year. And this is just a charter that allows you to have like set goals for yourself so that you can actually have something to aim towards and always try to get better and better. And they also have meetings to discuss other changes that they can make to get better. Because as you know, like as life goes on, racism or different minority groups have different challenges, and just being able to discuss what can be done or what needs to be changed. So some of the suggestions that I came up with upon doing more research as well is for us to have more stories like this. I feel like being able to talk to people about like my struggles, my colleagues as well, talking about their struggles and talking about the good and the bad, it just helps us feel more seen and feels like we feel more important as well. I feel like also doing these stories, not just during Black History Month, but maybe like throughout the year. Another suggestion that I had was maybe funding and scholarships towards Black Studies research. You can only like find out information through actually like doing the research, and maybe like if the university provided more funding towards this, that people will be more interested to maybe go to places in Africa as well to find out more things, because different diseases affect different people, maybe more or less. It also shows up differently on different people. So yeah. Another suggestion I had was about the dermatology block. I did speak to Dr. Kang about that, and she said the university were trying their best to try to incorporate that, because there's so many different skin complexions, different races. So just being able to understand that maybe like a bruise may look purple on a white person's hand may look like darker on my hand, or may not even be seen on my hand, but I still have that bruise. And lastly, Black representation. So Glasgow, I would say, is quite diverse, but the high school that I went to, there was literally no Black people. Luckily, when I came, my older sister was already there and she fought the struggles for me before I had to. But being able to come here and just see people in high professions being able to, or like even teaching, being able to like be the same color as me, just like poses as encouragement for me that I can actually do this, other people can do it, so why can I not? And just to round off with some of the case studies I went through, just to show that discrimination is real and it's not just something that we're just talking about blindly. So this case study called "We Are Not Taken Seriously" was a case study about Black women who were struggling with cervical cancer and they were facing discrimination. On the case study, I read that Black women are more likely to die from cervical cancer and they also have a higher incidence rate, but they are less likely to be tested early or tested more frequently than white people. And I feel like the problem is that they're not getting tested. So the solution is quite clear. And if we can just come up with a better solution on how we can stop discrimination and stuff, then maybe many Black women will not be dying from cervical cancer. Thank you for listening. And if you do have any questions, you can feel free to.
Does this one work? Yeah, working? Yeah, thanks. Thanks very much. That's amazing. Really great stuff. First of all, I'm from Barnsley as well, so that's great. People ask me why I left Barnsley. It's because I found the train station. Nice to see Barnsley on the map. One of you said at the beginning how you felt when you came here that there's a diverse student body, and then you all showed photographs of the ball or whatever you've been to. And it really is it's striking compared to I was at medical school a long time ago. The three of us are sat here at the front feeling old. Even Dr. Alstaff sitting around feeling
we're young.
But my first year of medical school, I don't think there was one Black person in my year of 160 to 70. And what a striking difference. You said at some point that it's important to see people like you up here, and I appreciate I don't look like you at all. But I hope you feel that the people who stand here in the senior membership of the university support you, and we see you, and we want you to feel welcome and that you can flourish. And it's really valuable for you to come and speak at these sessions. So we really appreciate you. Is that all right, everyone? Spontaneous round of applause again. Does anybody have any questions? Please, any questions? Yes, I'm going to go home. Can I throw a second?
Try it? Yeah, I can't catch anything. So.
Does it work?
So I was just going to follow up on what you said first, which a few years ago now we were asked to talk nationally about what each medical school is doing to combat racism and various other things. And one of the pieces of work we did then was we looked at the ethnic diversity within our student population, within the NHS workforce locally, which is much harder to get any information on, and then on the local population that comes into the hospital as patients. And there is a big irony that if you want to learn about different ethnicities, you do better learning from each other than on the wards. Which I suppose leads me to my question, which is you've all been very polite and kind about what we do and how we are trying to support you in fitting in. Although mental, the Afro-Caribbean Society are clearly doing a much better job than we are, so we should look at it. What else can we do? What else do you want from us? What will make it better from here? Oh, you want the signature? I can't believe it. I want full marks for that.
For those of you at home on Zoom, Professor Holdesol is throwing a blue block around. It is the microphone.
One thing I would say is that continue just to keep doing what you're doing. I don't think there's anything that I can like blatantly point out and say do this better or don't do this at all. But I think even like Dr. Carter was just saying, the fact that we're even here right now to speak and share our stories, to share our struggles, and the fact that you guys are all here as well to listen and to take from it and to give us these spaces and these opportunities. It's a big deal, honestly. And I don't think any of us take it lightly, and we're very, very much appreciative of it. So thank you.
And keep asking for them, right?
Will do.
Ask us.
Shall I go on? Too long.
Where was your seat?
It was very actually similar to Ellie in terms of what we can do next, so that's good to hear. But maybe a slight reframe, because lots of questions for others, and it's good to hear generally actually positive stuff that's happening. I think earlier one of you said about sometimes we kind of force you to come together. Is that okay? Is that working? Is that still the right thing to do, or is there something we need to do to tweak or adjust that a little bit? I'll bring you up the track. Jen.
You can have this one. Yeah, it's working.
I think I was the one that said worship comes here. I do apologize if the word was a bit strong. I think I use the word not in terms of just from a race point of view. I just think it's more, I like to say that sometimes, compared to my own degree, medicine kind of reminds me of high school, like where people naturally form groups like quite early on compared to other degrees. But I think it's kind of nice in a way because I remember back to first, second, and third year where people in their small groups would try and take time out of medical school to get to know each other. So either they'd be meeting at spoons and trying to like get to know each other on like what do you call it, clinical point of view, which is quite nice. And I feel like when I say force, it kind of almost forces connections in a way that, you know, maybe if you're doing another degree, you have staff that next to that person and spoken to them. So definitely I think the way that medical school is set up is really nice because, you know, even if you come to medical school not knowing very many people, it's the way it's framed allows you to kind of just naturally make friends, get to know people, even as you go through 40. So even now I'm meeting so many different types of people because the curriculum is just so diverse. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. I've got this big cube thing now, so I'll go for an actual ridiculous robots, isn't it? Right, so back and forth. So it's 30 seconds till I start my clinic. So it's a good trigger to bring things to a conclusion. So thanks for the people in the audience who took that time out to physically be here. It is nice to be here physically in the space. And if you're thinking of doing a grand round in the future, then this space is available. And if you want to come and actually interact with some people in real life, then please do say that, and I can book the room. This will be available on YouTube when I get around to editing it. And then there are more grand rounds all the way through the year. And we've got space in next term in 2025 if you want to do a talk. And we're starting to fill that already, so that's encouraging. But if you do have a talk you want to give, then please let me know, and you can have this space. So thanks again to our students. Thanks for Lee, who's organised it in the background. And I'll see you again next week.